I'm Gloria Moraga. This is the Political Woman Podcast. I'm recording this on Sunday, July 2nd, 2023. If you are on holiday for this Independence Day weekend, some are taking a long weekend, please have a great time. Happy 4th and be safe. Well, the final rulings from the right-wing, partially corrupt Supreme Court for the 22-23 session are all in. The Supreme Court is now on vacation, but only after setting us back about 20 years or so when you look at civil rights. I'm overly dramatic, yes I am, but we have survived worse than this, and we're going to survive this. It's just sad, that's all. It's sad to watch some members of the Supreme Court hand down decisions based on their personal religious beliefs and for other reasons, instead of looking at the Constitution and basing their decisions on legal precedent. You ever feel like you're in a nightmare and you just can't wake up? Yeah, that's how I feel watching the civil rights violations by the Supreme Court. I mean, they're setting us back, okay? All right, I'm going to do a quick list, and then I'll just give you some info. Affirmative action, student loans, environmental protections, clean water rights for millions of Americans, civil rights for LGBTQ, and voting rights for blacks in the South. Those are some of the issues that I'm going to talk about in this podcast. There were others. There were many others, but I'm just going to focus on these. Affirmative action in college admissions. The case was Students for Fair Admissions, Inc. versus President and Fellows of Harvard College and the University of North Carolina. The ruling was 6-3, right down ultra-conservatives on one side and the non-conservative justices on the other side. It's a ruling that will most likely alter college admission policies across the country, not in just these two colleges. Bottom line, the majority of the court says you can't use race when considering admissions to colleges. So I just want to get on the soapbox for a second and explain that affirmative action is about diversity, but not just diversity for people of color. It's about diversity for rich versus poor as well. So it's just, affirmative action is not just a matter of race, is what I'm trying to say. It's a way to level playing fields that weren't always level. And yeah, I'll admit I got into the broadcasting business when there were very few women in broadcasting, yeah, dark ages, but also there were no Latinas. None. And it was tough. It was tough to break in because we weren't considered acceptable to be on TV. And it's the same with colleges. It's exactly the same. I mean, we could have colleges that only allow rich people in, and that is the case, was the case back in the day, and affirmative action did change that in a good way, because you know what? When you get out in the real world, people in the real world are not all white. We have a global economy now, and we need to have diversity in our universities, in our boardrooms, at the workplace, and because that's the way it is in life, okay? And so, yeah, I think people misunderstand what affirmative action is, and I'm not trying to talk down to you, but affirmative action took a hit here, and it's not just going to hurt minority students, brown, black, Asian, but it hurts everybody, whether you know it or believe it or not. Next case, Harper versus Moore. This was one of two decisions that I liked from the Supreme Court this term. I talked about this in the last podcast, and this basically rejects the independent state legislature theory. And this vote was also 6-3. The court rejected a right-wing legal theory that would have given state legislatures largely unchecked power to set the rules for federal elections. Wow. And yes, this did come about because Donald Trump lost the last election, the last presidential election. But he can't accept it because he's a big baby. They went, Trump people, from court to court to try to overturn the election in the courts, and it didn't work. So what they tried to do was work this out through the legislatures that are very right-wing MAGA in some of the states, because they're thinking, well, this is going to happen again, and next time we're going to win, we're going to create this. State legislatures are all powerful, and that's how we're going to take the election. Well, the Supreme Court said no. Yay. I was shocked that the Supreme Court said no. So, wow, we've got to just take this win and hold on to it, because this was a win for democracy. Basically, the court, and I talked about it in the last podcast, and I've got info on my website, gloriamiraga.com. And yeah, this was a good ruling from the Supreme Court. Now I'll go to one that just infuriates me. This was, the center of this argument is LGBTQ civil rights. The case was 301 Creative versus Elenis. And you know why I'm so outraged by this? It's a case that's a hypothetical. It's a hypothetical case. A graphic designer doesn't want to create websites, wedding websites for gay couples. She says her religion doesn't approve of LGBTQ. And so she says it violates her First Amendment, her free speech rights, if she has to do this. Well, she doesn't have a wedding website business. So this was a hypothetical. And every time I've covered, when I was a reporter in Capitol Hill, I covered the Supreme Court, I covered the Congress, there would be a Supreme Court nominee going before the Senate committee, and they would ask questions about how are you going to vote on abortion, how are you going to vote on civil rights, how are you going to vote, and they always answer back, that's a hypothetical, Amy Coney Barrett. And I can't answer that. This was a freaking hypothetical. This man that they used as an example in this case isn't gay. He's married and has children, and he didn't give his permission to use his name. They accepted a case that didn't even really happen. But they accepted it, and they did it because right-wingers in this country, the haters, just can't stand it that there's gay marriage in this country. And this is a way to chip away at those rights. I had people say to me when I posted a video on TikTok and YouTube, you know, why does anyone want this woman to create their website for them? People really don't. This has never happened in real life. So, yeah, it involved First Amendment free speech. gave her these protections, which is wrong. It violates my civil rights. So, yeah, that's that case. And I've calmed down a lot since I first read about this and talked about it. Biden's student loan program, gone, dead, done. Supreme Court ruled that President Biden and the Department of Education overstepped their power. And there needs to be separation of powers from a Supreme Court that's legislating from the bench. They're not legislators. They need to stop. Anyway, no, we're not going to get student debt forgiveness this after all the critics in the Congress who are critical of the student loan debt forgiveness measure accepted hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt forgiveness for their businesses during the pandemic. They don't seem to have a problem with that. So this is just hypocrisy at its worst. Groff versus DeJoy. DeJoy is Groff versus DeJoy. I've just blanked on who DeJoy is. DeJoy is our Postmaster General. I knew I'd get it. Groff was a postal worker. He had to work on Sundays. He said that working on Sundays violated his Christian fundamentalist beliefs. And the Supreme Court also heard this case. And majority of the right-wingers of the Supreme Court are Catholic. Remember that whole church versus state and separation of that? No, these people are really rewriting the rules. They split on this case. They said yes and they said no. They refused to rule on Groff's individual case. So he has to take his case back to the state. However, they ruled that, yes, employers have to be more considerate, have a higher standard when they deny someone the ability to practice their religion. See, they snuck that in there. They snuck it in. Yeah. Employers need to do more than just the minimum to accommodate religious rights and requests. And then Groff, you're out of luck, go back to the state. Voting rights and redistricting. This was the second case that I liked, a second decision. This happened in June 8th. Major victory for black voters in Alabama. What Alabama did in 2 districts is they redistricted, they gerrymandered, and they cut out, the way they drew the districts, most of the black voters, even though black voters make up 50% of the population in that state and in those districts. So the Supreme Court said, no, this is wrong. Wow, another shocker. And they had to redraw those districts. And oh boy, let's win those congressional seats next year. Environmental regulation. So a couple from Idaho challenged the Environmental Protection Act, and the court ruled for the couple and against the Environmental Protection Agency. This is not good. If you care about Mother Earth and the environment, what this does is it leaves large, wide swatches of sensitive wetlands and tributaries unprotected by the Clean Water Act. It's bad. What they're doing here is they're chipping away at the 1972 anti-pollution law. You're just going to let big business trash our country and kill our land. Native American adoption. This is another one that was, you look at it and you think, oh, this is great because the court upheld for Native Americans. and tribal members, that they have to have first consideration when it comes to adoption of Native American children. This is good on one hand because it protects Native children from being abused by the Catholic Church and others, which has happened in the past. However, also some critics say, and there have been horror cases of Native American children being put back with their parents, their native parents, on tribal lands and being harmed. And it should always be that we make decisions based on the welfare of the child. So that's just a pickle. Water rights. Wow. I'm going to end with this one. This is water rights, Arizona versus Navajo Nation. In this country, 58 out of every 1,000 Native Americans lack plumbing. They lack water in their houses where they live. That's opposed to 3 out of every 1,000 white people. So first of all, let me say, it's appalling that in this country, anybody doesn't have running water in their houses. Right now, this case, the Navajo Nation that brought this case in Arizona, have to haul water. And other white Americans have to haul water too. And what is wrong with us? This is wrong. The Navajo Nation is looking to tap into and get the water that runs through their land and under their land. And there's problems with that. And so they sued, and the Supreme Court ruled against them. Here's what Justice Kavanaugh wrote, and I'm just, quote from Kavanaugh, "It is not the judiciary's role to rewrite and update the 155-year-old treaty that this government agreed to with the Navajo Nation. It's not the judiciary's role, but it is the judiciary's role to take away a woman's right to see a doctor in private." What? They're just as crazy as, I don't know, as crazy as my Aunt Tilly. I don't have an Aunt Tilly. Oh, that's the last one. And it's just, I don't know. I'm without hope except for this. I'm going to read from the Constitution. Article 3, Section 1 states, "The judicial power of the United States shall be vested in one Supreme Court and in such inferior courts as the Congress may occasionally ordain and establish." Although the Constitution establishes the Supreme Court, the Constitution permits Congress to decide how to organize the court. Congress first exercised this power in the Judiciary Act of 1789. This created the United States Supreme Court. The Congress, writing for the Constitution, created the Supreme Court with 6 justices and also established federal courts. Over the years, through various acts of Congress, the number of Supreme Court seats has been as low as 5 and as high as 10. Shortly after the Civil War, it was a long time ago, okay? The number of seats on the court was fixed at 9. But it's up to the Congress. It's up to the Congress. There is our power. I'm here, I'm doing this. I'm doing the little videos, I'm doing this because Next election year is critically important for this country. And there's our power, my friends. You're sick of what the Supreme Court's doing to our rights? Making decisions based on the fact that they're Catholic or right-wing? No. We have the power to elect members of Congress that believe what we believe. That's how it works. That's how it's supposed to work. We study, we learn, we watch to see the candidates that we need to vote for, and then we vote them in, and we add more members to the court and get people in there who are smart and follow the Constitution and follow the laws. There's our answer. Now, Biden has said that he doesn't think that we should expand the court right now. It's not his job. It's the Congress's job. But we can't do it with a divided Congress. We need to pack the Congress with people who are thoughtful and smart and get rid of all these really dumb people. I'm Gloria Moraga. I'm a political woman. No, I don't have all the answers, but I know this. Please follow me on TikTok. Please follow me on YouTube. Please subscribe to me here. I am doing this. I need more followers on TikTok. I need more followers on YouTube so that I can have more control over my content. Like, for instance, on TikTok, I want to create playlists so that I can communicate better with people out there, so that people know, here's what Congress is doing. Here's the laws that are being passed. Here are the candidates. Here are the initiatives. Here are the issues. So I want to be able to do that on TikTok. I need 10,000 followers to do that. I know, it seems like impossible. And I've been producing videos on YouTube for years, and I still only have a couple of 100 followers on YouTube, but I've got hope. So please follow me. Please have a great 4th. I love America. And please be safe.